Good day everyone. My name is Ben Sailidi Navales from BSMLS 2M, Group 2 Histopathology Laboratory. Today, me and my groupmates are going to explain to you the histopathology laboratory workflow, starting from the receiving of the specimen and accessioning. So to start, we must first wash our hands to eliminate the pathogens that there may be in our hands. And next is to wear our personal protective equipment or PPE, and this includes our gloves, masks, lab gowns, lab shoes, and other necessary PPEs. Especially for the girls, they need to wear head cap because of their long hair. So the two important things that we need to receive in the laboratory is, of course, first the request form, and the second is the specimen container with a specimen that is prefixed with formalin. So the next thing to do is to check if the information given on the request form matches the information that is also indicated in our specimen container. So the request form and the specimen container contains some information like the name of the patient, the age, date of birth and sex, the date and time of collection, the type of specimen, and other necessary information that is needed. And after we check that the information given on the request form matches the information that also indicated in the specimen container, we will then make a specimen accessioning serial number that we will put on the specimen container. And this is how the serial number looks like. So it has 3 codes, and the first code can either be SP or AP. SP means surgical pathology and comes from the specimen of a live person, while AP means autopsy pathology, which comes from the specimen from a cadaver. So moving on to the second code. So the second code is the last 2 digits of the current year. So now it's currently 2021. That's why it's indicated there as 21. And next, for the third code, it is the specimen control number. So the meaning of 123 is that it is the 123rd specimen that was received in the lab in that current year. And for multiple samples in one patient, we designate a letter after the control number. And this letter tells us that it's a different specimen from the same person. So now I'm going to put it in our specimen container. So in the laboratory, we also have a set of criteria for specimen rejection. First is if the specimen is unlabeled or the labeling on the specimen is wrong. Second, if the patient information or clinical history of the specimen is incomplete. Third, if the specimen is left unfixed or unrefrigerated for an extended period of time. Number 4, if the specimen is putrefied or it has decayed or rotten with smell, or if the specimen is otolized, meaning it's poorly fixed and it turned into a necro specimen. So number 5, if the specimen is damaged or broken. Number 6, if the specimen that was provided is insufficient sample for processing. Number 7, if the specimen was spilled or contaminated. Number 8, failure of the requesting physician to enter the request in the computer. And number 9, if the specimen container is empty. Of course, how are we going to examine if the specimen container is empty? So it's an obvious that we reject the specimen right away. So that's all for my video today. I hope you learned something, and the next steps are going to be explained by my other groupmates. Thank you for watching. Bye guys.
Hi and good afternoon. I am one of the lab Karpuz and I'll be performing gross examination of an organ taken from a full-grown chicken. First, let me define what is gross examination. So gross examination is the first step in histopathology techniques. It is an important stage in histopathology and clinical management since all the initial findings happen during this time. And information obtained in this process will aid the pathologist in rendering a diagnosis during the microscopic evaluation of the tissue. So, what do we do in gross examination? In grossing, the pathologist or medical technologist inspect the specimen, describe and measure the tissue, ink it if necessary, and section the tissue to be processed for diagnosis. We will now begin the examination proper. It is important to wear our mask. The materials for this process are gloves, clear ruler with graduations for precise measurement of the specimen, specimen of choice, and clean chopping board where the whole procedure will be conducted. Let us now identify the specimen. So, specimen type is total hepatectomy, which is received fresh in a container labeled with patient's name, ABDV, and designated as SP21123. Since the liver has two lobes, let's start measuring the right lobe first. So it is 5 by 7 centimeter in greatest diameter and 0.5 centimeter height. Next is the left lobe. Left lobe is 4 centimeter by 5.8 centimeter in greatest diameter. Height is 0.4 centimeter. The capsule is smooth, glistening, and unremarkable. No gross fibrosis and gross calcification noted in all areas. The color of specimen is tan red to brown. The shape is wedge, and the consistency is soft.
As of this moment, I will be cutting transverse and cross-section to obtain a representative tissue for thorough examination. In cutting, longitudinal section must be done on distal tip and cross-sections on middle and proximal part. If there are visible abnormalities on tissue specimens, then that must be included. The sample must be about 3 to 4 millimeters for good penetration. In this procedure, I obtained 2 centimeters from the distal tip, 3 to 4 millimeters from the middle part, and 3 to 4 millimeters from the proximal part. The sectioning reveals a tan red to brown mucosa with flat formation and tissue fluid.
Proximal cross-section A1 length is 4 mm. The serosa is pinkish red and smooth, no presence of perforation. Cross-section A2 shows a lumen approximately 0.1 cm in diameter with no granular materials. Longitudinal section A3 length is 2 cm. The mucosa is pinkish red with smooth surface.
After the specimen has been cut, place the samples on a tissue cassette. First sample, A1, proximal and cross-sectional cut. Second sample, A2, medial section, cross-sectional cut. Last sample, A3, distal end, longitudinal cut.
The next step is the fixative process, where we are gonna soak our cutted sections into our fixative. So for our fixative, we're gonna be using the 10% formalin, which is also called the universal fixative because it is the most common and most widely used fixative. So we're just gonna soak our specimen in our fixative. So this process is very important because this prevents autolysis of our specimen. And also, if this process is delayed or if this process is performed wrongly, this can cause irreversible damage to our specimen. That is all. Thank you.
Hi, I will be doing the step 3 of fixation. So after putting the tissue cassettes in a beaker that is filled with the 10% formalin, we will now cover it using a foil and leave it for 18 to 24 hours. Decalcification is done on bony, classified, or hard tissues. The reagent that we will be using is osteophase. So osteophase rapidly removes calcium, and because of this, it softens the tissue and makes it ready for further processing. This hard tissue is a chicken leg bone. First, we will put the specimen in a tissue cassette. Second, we will transfer a small amount of our decalcifying agent, which is the osteophase, into another container. Third, we will put the tissue cassette containing the specimen inside the container that has decalcifying agent and leave it for 12 hours or overnight.
After immersing the specimen into the decalcifying agent for 12 hours, remove it with the use of tweezers. With the tweezers' help, poke the specimen to determine if it has softened.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Shajika Melotes, and I will be presenting to you the dehydration and clearing process. Through the dehydration process, all the fixating solution and tissue fluid is removed. They are replaced with organic solvents, and these organic solvents are used because they are visible with both the embedding media, which is the paraffin wax, as well as the alcohol used to dehydrate the sample. We have our specimen, which is the chicken liver, that was submerged in vinegar for the fixation process, and our increasing concentration of alcohol, 70%, 90%, and 100% ethanol. After we submerge the specimen into the vinegar, we will now place it in a 70% ethanol for 30 minutes to start the dehydration process. Using our laboratory forceps, we can pick up the specimen to transfer it to the solution. And we will now wait for 30 minutes. Our 30 minutes is up, and now we will transfer our specimen into a higher concentration, which is the 90% ethanol, for another 30 minutes. Our timer starts now. The reason why we are submerging it first to a lower concentration to a higher concentration is to have a minimal tissue distortion for better viewing and observation of our specimen. And lastly, we will now bathe it in a 100% ethanol for 1 hour. Our 1 hour is up, and after the dehydration process, we will now proceed to the clearing of the specimen. Clearing is an essential step in histopathology processing for light microscopy. The purpose of clearing is to remove dehydrating agents from tissues and to prepare the tissue for impregnation with our embedding agent, which is our paraffin. So, we have our saline, which is the most common clearing agent used in the laboratory. If saline is not available, then we can use toluene or coconut oil, which is we can find in our oats. After the clearing process, the specimen is now ready for the embedding, which makes use of the melted paraffin. Thank you!
Good day everyone, I'm Val Patrick Ayuban and I will perform 2 smearing preparations, which is streaking and spreading. First off, streaking. We must pour a small amount of sediment onto the glass slide. And then streak it in a straight or zigzag line using an applicator stick. After that, cover it with another glass slide and label it. Second is spreading. Transfer a small amount of sediment onto the glass slide and using an applicator stick, spread it throughout the slide. And again, don't forget to label it. That's all. Thank you.
Hello, this is Marian Bea Di Bauzon, and I'm going to perform smearing techniques such as pull apart and
Imprint. For the pull-apart method, I will be needing 2 glass slides and a sample, which is the bone marrow aspirate. Place a drop of the sediment at one end of a glass slide. Cover it with the end of another glass slide. Allow the sediments to be spread evenly between the attached surface of the 2 glass slides. With a single uninterrupted motion, pull the 2 slides apart in opposite directions, then cover the smear with a cover slip. Don't forget to label your slide. Hello, for the next technique, I am going to demonstrate touch or impression smear or the imprint.
going to use specimen, a tweezer, and of course, a glass line.
First, get a block of tissue exposing a fresher surface. Allow the freshly cut surface to come in contact with the surface of a clean glass slide. Apply gentle pressure, allowing the cells to be transferred directly to the slide. Then cover the smear with a cover slip. Lastly, label your slide.
Hello! Today we're gonna make a paper boat through this paper. First, we're gonna need a 1/8 length of paper, this one. And now we need to fold this horizontally 3 times and vertically 3 times in 3 equal parts. So we folded it horizontally in 3 equal parts. 1, 2, 3. Now vertically. Let's see the so here 1, 2, 3, and that will give you a total of 9 boxes. So the next thing to do is to fold each corners of the paper. Fold them together. After you fold them, it should look like this. Now, it should have 4 flops. Now we need to fold the flop together on the smaller square. After folding the 4 flops together, it should look like this. After that, in the area where we folded the 2 flops, we're gonna fold it again. And it should look like this. Now you have a disposable paper boat. Yay!